Hi guys, this is Shayna from yumiyarns.com, and today I've got a tutorial for you on making I-cord. In this instance, it's being shown at the top of this cowl, which is called the Wild Wild West cowl. And it's used along the top as basically your starting point. And I just wanted to quick let you guys know I did get this yarn from a dyer friend of mine. She gifted it to me to design with and to do this tutorial. It's Tara from the Dyeing Arts. This is her smashing base. It's merino, yak, and silk, and it's the peacock colorway that we're going to be using for the tutorial today. And that's how it looks knit up into the I-cord. Some of you might be thinking, oh, well, is this an I-cord cast-on tutorial? No, it's not. Sorry. It's just a straight I-cord tutorial today because while you can use an I-cord cast-on for something like this, I really kind of discourage it. As much as I love different types of cast-ons and making things easier and everything, the I-cord cast-on tends to impact your gauge enough compared to what you usually need if you're going the opposite direction. So like when you do the I-cord cast-on, you basically put a bunch of live stitches on the needle so you can then work the opposite direction. But for this cowl, you actually just make a long string of I-cord and then pick up the stitches, which I know some people are like, ugh, yuck, that sounds horrible. The I-cord cast-on, you're not going to be happy because it's going to bunch weird. And that's just tends to be how the I-cord cast-on works in most projects. So while I'm usually a huge fan of teaching you all the weird, interesting types of cast-ons and things like that, that is one that I do kind of recommend people to use with caution, because it's generally a lot of stitches that you end up casting on and you don't notice that it isn't working until you're like this far into the project. And then you either leave it and are kind of dissatisfied with it or rip it out or whatever. Either way, I don't like it. You can like it if you want and use it. I don't recommend it. And that's a lot of negativity for this. Sorry about that. But what I do like is using just a regular I-cord and then picking up the stitches and working from there instead of the I-cord cast on. Also, the I-cord cast on, you don't get as tight of a join up here. You usually, unless you do some finagling as you're going along, a lot of people will end up with a gap between the I-cord and the knitting. So enough about the I-cord cast on that we're not doing. We're going to do regular I-cord, which I-cord is spelled I-C-O-R-D, and the term I believe was coined by Elizabeth Zimmerman, who was a very prominent knitter, and if you don't know about her, you need to look her up. She's amazing. But basically it stands for idiot cord because you end up making it by knitting incorrectly. And so it's kind of a funny name for it. But it's super, super easy to make, as the name implies. And it's got a lot of really great uses because you end up making just a solid cord of knitting, which can be used as an edging like this. You can use it as just like a string, like if you need to tie something in your knitted fabric, like if you just need a cord for like a drawstring pouch or like a detail at the top of knee-high socks or a little bow on a sweater or something. It's really handy for stuff like that. But let's see, there was something else I was going to tell you too, but I don't remember. But we're going to get started with it. I've got my little ball of remnants here, and I'm going to slide the cowl out of the way because that's just the finished look. What we're going to do is we're just going to take, you don't need a ton because you don't need a big long tail. So I'm going to take probably like 10 inches. I don't know the conversion off the top of my head for centimeters, I'm sorry, of string, or of yarn, not string. Who am I? And we're just going to take one of our knitting needles and cast on 3 stitches to get started here. So there's my 3 stitches. Have cast on the very first 1, 2, 3. Normally you would turn your work like that and work across, right? Not for I-cord. For I-cord, you're actually going to slide your needle through. So straights, you can do it. It's not as easy. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do it on straights because you end up slipping the stitches back. But so now we have all of our stitches over here. Our yarn is coming off the stitch that's farthest from the tip of our needle. That's how you know you did it right. Slide it all the way to the end, and we're just going to knit into that very first stitch. I pulled it really tight. Let's try that. There we go. So we're just gonna knit into that first. It helps if you are not doing this on camera and don't pull it super tight. There we go. Maybe. This part will probably get edited out. There we go. All right. So knit into the first stitch, slide it off, knit into the second stitch, slide it off, and knit into the third stitch, slide it off. And we're going to do the same thing again. Slide it over. Our yarn is coming off the farthest stitch from the tip. Knit into the first one, second, third, and see, you can kind of see we've got a little bit of a nub forming there. It takes a little while before it actually starts looking like cord. But we will get there. Slide it through. And one thing to look out for too, sometimes, especially if you're doing this for the first time, it'll look like you're getting ladders because things aren't pulling correctly or stuff like that. It'll look like you have a weird tension. But all you have to do is just grab the tail and just pull it down a little bit. It'll all go into place where it belongs. And you'll just get this cool little cord of knitted fabric. I know it's a little bit hard to see with that dark yarn. Sorry about that, guys. You can kind of see the details there. And then you just keep going. And then if you have to pick up and knit like we did for the cowl here, when you're picking the stitches up, each one of these little V's is one of the stitches. So you can just pick up a leg, put it on your needle, pick up the leg from the next one, put it on your needle, and that's how you pick up stitches from I-cord when you're doing something like this. Or anything that has like an I-cord edge that you want to apply it and then work from it. Instead of doing the I-cord cast on, you can do it this way. And the reason that this way works a little bit better, even though it seems like it's not any different from the cast on, from the I-cord cast on, because you're picking up the stitches as you go, you can decide how many in a row you pick up. So like for this one, I think I skipped every 4th stitch, and that ended up giving me a nice tension. So like when I was picking it up I would pick up 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, and then I'd skip a stitch. And then I'd pick up 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, skip a stitch. Just because that gave me the look I was wanting. That does take some trial and error, but it's a lot easier to trial and error on here. Also, you can kind of keep track of how many rows you've done. So like, let's say for the cowl, you needed to pick up 100 stitches around or off the I-cord to work from for the pattern. If I know I did 120 rows, I would know that I need to not pick up 20 stitches from this. So I would know that I can't pick up a stitch every single row. Hopefully that's making sense and not making it more confusing. But basically doing it this way and then picking up the stitches to work from gives you quite a bit more control over the finished look of your piece and gives you a little bit nicer finish to it. Hopefully that made sense. I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. Again, this is the Wild Wild West cowl. It's available over at yumiyarns.com and on Ravelry. And if you're seeing this shortly after it's released, the Wild Wild West cowl has just been added to yumiyarns.com, and newsletter subscribers will get it for half off. So make sure that you sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter goes out every Wednesday, and I try to include tutorials and tips and some fun knitting stuff, but then also some fun non-knitting stuff, recipes, books, stuff like that. So I hope you join in, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. I wanted to say thank you to my Patreon sponsors who help provide the support to get any editing apps and basically all the filming equipment for the channel. So thank you guys so much. I've got links in the description for all the things. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps boost my channel and gets more people seeing my videos. So I hope you guys have a great day and happy crafting. Bye.